mother is dying. The entire village will perish in days. And right there, before me is the answer. One shot, one arrow. But there is no problem. To save everyone you love, you have to become the monster you swore you'd never to be.
The Hunter and the Moonflower Maiden. In the village of Adaeze, nestled between the whispering forests and the singing river, there lived a hunter named Kofi. He was not the strongest man, nor the wealthiest, but his aim was true and his heart was honest. Every morning before dawn, he would venture into the forest, and every evening he would return with enough game to feed his aging mother and share with those in need. Now, in this same village lived a young woman named Amara, and to say she was beautiful would be like saying the sun merely glows. Her skin was smooth as polished mahogany, her eyes held the depth of forest pools, and when she smiled, it was as if flowers bloomed in her wake. But Amara was more than her beauty. She had a laugh that could lift heavy hearts, and a kindness that touched everyone she met. Every young man in Adaeze and the surrounding villages had tried to win Amara's hand. Rich merchants arrived with bolts of finest cloth. The chief's son came bearing gold and promises of status. Even a prince from across the great river had sent emissaries with precious gifts. But Amara politely declined them all. Her grandmother, wise old Mama Efwa, would smile knowingly and say, "The heart knows its own path, even when the mind cannot see the way." Kofi had loved Amara from afar since they were children, but he never spoke of it. What could he offer her? He owned nothing but his bow, his arrows, and a small hut he shared with his mother. While others brought gold, he could only offer game from the forest. While others promised palaces, he could only provide a simple life. So he remained silent, content to see her at the village well, to hear her laughter in the marketplace, and to keep his feelings locked away like seeds waiting for a season that might never come. One dry season, misfortune fell upon Adaeze like a heavy stone. The rains failed to come, the crops withered, and game became scarce in the forest. The river that had always sung now whispered weakly. Hunger began to stalk the village like a shadow. The chief called the elders together, and after much discussion, they made a desperate decision. They would send a party of their finest hunters deep into the forbidden forest, the dark woods beyond the mountains where no villager had ventured in 3 generations, to seek the legendary White Stag, an animal so large that its meat could feed the village for months. But the forbidden forest earned its name. Stories told of spirits that led travellers in circles until they went mad, of trees that moved when you weren't looking, of a darkness that could swallow a person's courage whole. When the chief asked for volunteers, silence fell over the gathering. Even the bravest hunters looked at their feet. Then Kofi stood up. "I will go," he said simply. "Alone?" the chief asked, surprised. "A large party makes much noise," Kofi replied. "The forest will hide from many feet, but might reveal itself to one who walks softly." The night before his departure, Kofi went to the river to fill his water gourds. There he found Amara, sitting on the rocks, her feet in the shallow water. The moon was full, turning everything silver. "You're really going?" she asked without turning around. "I am," he said, surprised she knew about his plan. Surprised she was speaking to him. "Everyone thinks you're either very brave or very foolish." "Perhaps I'm both," Kofi said with a slight smile. Amara turned to face him then, and in the moonlight he saw worry in her eyes. "Why you, Kofi? You owe the village no special debt." He knelt to fill his gourds, choosing his words carefully. "My mother is old. If hunger comes, she will be among the first to suffer. And there are children in this village." He paused. "And people I care about. If I can do something, should I not try?" Amara was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her wrapper and pulled out a small leather pouch. My grandmother gave me this. She said to give it to someone when the time was right. I think that time is now. Kofi opened the pouch and found 3 items. A small mirror no bigger than his palm, a ball of red thread, and a single white feather. I don't understand, he said. Neither do I, Amara admitted. But Mama Efwa said you would know when the time came to use each one. She said to trust your heart, not your eyes. Their hands touched as she placed the pouch in his palm, and for a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. Come back, Kofi, Amara whispered. The village needs you. The village? He asked softly, searching her face. A blush darkened her cheeks. The village? She repeated, but her eyes said more than her words. At dawn, Kofi entered the forbidden forest. For 3 days he walked deeper than any hunter had gone. The trees grew so thick that day became twilight. Strange birds called in languages he'd never heard. Twice he felt he was being followed, but when he turned, nothing was there. On the 4th day, just as his water was running low, he came to a clearing. In its centre stood a well, and beside the well sat an old woman so ancient she seemed carved from the earth itself. Water hunter? She croaked. Yes, grandmother, thank you, Kofi replied respectfully. As he drank, the old woman watched him with eyes like black stones. You seek the White Stag. I do. Many have sought it. None have returned. Do you know why? Kofi shook his head. Because they saw what they wanted to see, not what was there. The forest shows us our desires, hunter, and most men chase shadows until they become shadows themselves. She pointed a gnarled finger at 3 paths leading from the clearing. One path leads to the stag. One path leads to your death. One path leads back home. Choose. Kofi studied the paths. The left path was wide and clear, with fruit trees visible along its edges. The middle path was dark and twisted, thorns blocking the way. The right path was so overgrown he could barely see it. Most would choose the clear path, he thought. But the forest shows us our desires. He remembered Amara's words, trust your heart, not your eyes. Kofi closed his eyes and stood very still. He listened. From the overgrown right path he heard it, the faintest sound of running water. Where there was water, animals would come. I choose the right path, he said. The old woman's face cracked into a smile. You have wise friends, hunter, but choosing the path is only the beginning. He had to cut through the undergrowth with his hunting knife, and it took hours to move even a short distance. His arms ached, his water was nearly gone, and doubt began to whisper in his mind. Perhaps he should turn back. Perhaps he'd chosen wrong. Then he remembered the small mirror in Amara's pouch. Trust your heart, not your eyes. He pulled it out, and instead of looking into it, he held it up and looked at the reflection of the path behind him. In the mirror, the overgrown path showed itself clearly, marked with subtle signs. A bent branch here, a stone arrangement there, all pointing forward. The forest was testing him, showing him obstacles that weren't truly there. Using the mirror to see truly, Kofi made faster progress until he emerged at a crystal stream. And there, drinking from the water, was the White Stag. It was magnificent, tall as 2 men, with antlers that seemed to touch the sky, its coat gleaming like fresh snow. But something was wrong. Around its back leg was a cruel iron trap, hidden beneath the water. The stag couldn't run. It was suffering. Kofi's heart twisted. He could kill it easily now. His village would be saved. His duty would be done. But as he raised his bow, the stag turned its great head and looked at him. In its eyes, Kofi saw not an animal, but something ancient and aware. And he saw pain. He lowered his bow. I cannot, he whispered. I cannot kill something so noble while it's trapped and suffering. That would not be a hunt. It would be murder. He approached slowly, speaking softly, and the stag, as if understanding, stood very still. Kofi waded into the stream and worked at the trap. It was old iron, rusted and complex. His fingers bled from the effort. An hour passed then too. Finally, with a snap, the trap released. The stag stepped free, and as it did, it began to change. Its form shimmered like heat rising from stones, and suddenly before Kofi stood a tall man with eyes like starlight, dressed in robes that seemed woven from moonbeams. "I am the guardian of this forest," the being said in a voice like wind through leaves. "For 7 generations, I have worn the form of the White Stag, and for 7 generations, hunters have come to kill me. You are the first to choose mercy over need." "My village is starving," Kofi said. "I've failed them." "Have you?" The guardian smiled. "You were sent to hunt, but instead you revealed your true nature. You are a protector, not a taker. The forest sees this," the guardian touched Kofi's shoulder. "Return home, hunter. Follow the red thread when the path seems lost, and use the white feather when you face what you fear most. Your village will not starve, for a protector always finds a way." Before Kofi could speak again, the guardian was gone, and he stood alone by the stream as night began to fall. The journey back was harder. Without the White Stag, what would he tell his people? He walked through the night, and by morning he was completely lost. The trees all looked the same, and fog had rolled in, thick as wool. Then he remembered the red thread. He pulled it from the pouch, and the moment it touched the air, it began to glow softly. When he placed one end on the ground, it rolled away, unspooling, leaving a glowing trail. Kofi followed it, trusting what he could not understand. The thread led him not toward home, but deeper into the forest, to a grove he'd never seen. There, growing wild in enormous abundance, were plants he recognized. Yam vines heavy with tubers, trees laden with fruit, mushrooms the size of plates. It was a secret garden in the heart of the forest, enough food to feed his village for the entire dry season. His heart soared. He began to harvest, filling his pack, planning how he'd return with others to... A growl stopped him cold. From the shadows emerged a leopard, the largest he'd ever seen. Its eyes were fixed on him, its muscles coiled to spring. Kofi had 3 arrows, but in this thick grove, he'd get only 1 shot, and if he missed, the leopard would be upon him. His hand trembled as he reached for his bow. Then he felt the white feather in his pouch. Use it when you face what you fear most. But how? How could a feather help him against a leopard? Trust your heart, not your eyes. Instead of drawing his bow, Kofi slowly pulled out the white feather. The leopard crouched lower, ready to pounce. Kofi held up the feather and blew on it gently. It floated toward the leopard, and as it did, it multiplied. 1 feather became 10, became 100, became 1,000 white feathers swirling in the air like snow. The leopard's aggression melted into confusion, then wonder. It sat back on its haunches, watching the beautiful display like a kitten watching butterflies. When the feathers finally settled, the leopard simply stood, looked at Kofi with what seemed like respect, and walked away into the forest. Kofi released a breath he hadn't known he was holding. The test was passed. The forest had accepted him. He marked the grove carefully and hurried home. When he emerged from the forbidden forest after 7 days, the entire village rushed to meet him, Amara at the front of the crowd. "The White Stag?" the chief asked. "I did not kill it," Kofi said, and gasps rippled through the crowd. "But I found something better." He told them of the grove, and the very next day he led a party of villagers to harvest its abundance. The food lasted through the dry season, and when the rains finally came, Kofi showed the farmers where to plant their crops in the forest's rich soil. The village not only survived, but thrived. Kofi's mother recovered her strength. The children grew healthy and strong, and Kofi became known not as a great hunter, but as a great provider and protector, a man who thought of others before himself. One evening, as the village celebrated the harvest, Amara found Kofi sitting alone by the river, watching the sunset paint the water gold. "You never told anyone about the Guardian," she said, sitting beside him. "Or the magic. Who would believe it? And besides, the magic wasn't in the mirror, or the thread, or the feather. Those just helped me see what was already there. The right path, the hidden food, the possibility of peace instead of violence." "My grandmother is very wise," Amara said softly. "She is. Though I still wonder why she gave those things to me through you." Amara smiled. "Perhaps she knew I needed an excuse to speak to you. You know, for someone who faces leopards and spirits, you're quite timid around women." Kofi felt his face grow warm. "Not all women, just one." "And which one is that?" Amara teased, though her eyes were bright. Instead of answering with words, Kofi did something brave. He took her hand in his. "The prettiest girl in the village," he said, "though that's not why I love her. I love her because she has a kind heart, because her laughter makes dark days bright, because she sees people as they truly are, not as they appear." Amara's smile could have lit the darkening sky. "Then that girl is very fortunate, because she loves a man who proved that true wealth is not in gold or status, but in courage, compassion, and integrity." They were married when the next rains came, and Mama Efua danced at their wedding despite her age. The village celebrated for 3 days, and even the forest seemed to rejoice, sending a cool breeze and the song of 1,000 birds. Kofi never became rich in gold, but his life overflowed with wealth that cannot be counted. Love, respect, purpose, and joy. He taught the village's children to hunt, but more importantly, he taught them to see truly, to choose wisely, and to understand that the greatest victories often come not from taking, but from protecting. And sometimes, when he walked in the forest, he would glimpse a flash of white between the trees. The white stag, watching, approving, reminding him that those who choose mercy over ambition, compassion over greed, will always find their way home. For in the end, the real treasure Kofi had been hunting all along was not found in the forest, but had been waiting for him in his own village, in the heart of a woman who saw his worth before the world did, and in discovering the hero he'd always been inside. And they lived, as the old ones say, in happiness and peace, their love a light that guided others, just as a small mirror, a red thread, and a white feather had once guided a humble hunter through the darkness into his destiny. And so the story ends, but the truth it carries lives on, that the bravest journeys lead us not away from home, but toward our truest selves.